Subscribe to my YouTube channel, share it with your friends, and comment your thoughts. She stood frozen, staring down at the crumpled piece of paper in her trembling hands. The blood had already dried on it, the dark red smudging the jagged handwriting until the words blurred. The old saloon's door creaked open behind her, the sharp noise snapping her back. The drifter cowboy, tall, dusty and silent, stepped inside, boots thudding heavily against the wooden floor. His eyes, shadowed beneath the worn brim of his hat, locked onto hers. A slow smile curved his lips, cold and unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," he said quietly, but there was a strange weight behind his voice. She laughed, a bitter, sharp sound that filled the empty room. "And you're supposed to stop me? You're just a drifter. Nobody cares who you are." His smile didn't fade. "Maybe, but I'm the last person you want to cross tonight." Her fingers clenched the note harder. She should run, call for help, anything. But a fierce curiosity rooted her to the spot. What was this note? Who was it from? And why did it have her name scrawled in blood-red ink? The cowboy took a slow step forward, dust kicking up around his boots. "You don't know me, but soon you're going to learn what I've been running from, and why it's coming for you too." Before she could speak, a sudden noise shattered the tense silence. A gunshot, a scream. She spun around, heart pounding, but the doorway was empty again. Only the chilling echo of that shot remained. Her laugh died in her throat. This was no joke. This was no game. And somehow the drifter cowboy was tangled in it all. The sharp smell of gunpowder lingered in the air as her breath came out in quick, ragged gasps. The old saloon, usually a place for quiet drinks and whispered deals, was now a cage tightening around her. Her name, written in blood, was not just a warning, it was a threat. She tried to focus, but the world around her blurred. Who sent this note? Why did the drifter bring trouble to her doorstep? And what had she ever done to deserve this? Her name was Claire Bennett, a woman who had never wanted to be noticed. Quiet, independent, always careful. But tonight, the fragile bubble she had built around herself was bursting. "Claire," the cowboy said softly, voice steady now, "I didn't come here to scare you. I came to protect you." Protect her? From what? From whom? She shook her head, struggling to make sense of the stranger who seemed both dangerous and oddly familiar. "You don't even know me," she said, eyes narrowing. "Why should I trust you?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside, a silver locket glinted faintly. "This belonged to your mother," he said quietly. Claire's heart clenched. Her mother had died 10 years ago, an unsolved mystery that still haunted her nights. How could this stranger possibly have something that belonged to her? "Where did you get that?" she demanded. The cowboy's eyes darkened. "It's part of a story you don't know yet. A story about who you really are and what your family hid from you." Claire's mind raced back to the night her mother vanished. She remembered the cold wind, the distant thunder, and the scream that shattered the silence. The police had called it a runaway, but Claire never believed it. There were secrets, shadows, lurking just out of reach, and now this drifter held a piece of that puzzle. "Why come now?" Claire whispered, voice barely audible. "Because they're coming for you, the same ones who took her." She stared at him, trying to read the truth. In his eyes, fear mixed with anger boiled inside her. "I don't need a stranger telling me what to do." "No," he said firmly, "but you need to listen, because if you don't, you'll lose everything." Outside, the wind howled, rattling the saloon's windows like an angry spirit. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the town swallowed by darkness. The streets were empty, but the danger was close, closer than she dared imagine. Claire glanced down at the blood-stained note again. She forced herself to read the barely legible words. "Trust no one. They watch. They wait. Run before it's too late." Her breath caught. Who were they? And why had they left this warning for her? The drifter cowboy stepped closer, his voice dropping to a low growl. "You're already in their sights. Tonight, nothing will be the same." Suddenly, a noise at the back of the saloon made them both jump. The swinging door rattled as someone tried to push it open, but it was stuck. "Hide," the cowboy commanded, eyes scanning for the threat. Claire ducked behind the bar, heart pounding like a drum. The door gave way with a loud bang. Two men stumbled. Inside, faces grim and eyes cold. "You've got the message," one said, holding up a bloodied handkerchief. "Now it's time to end this." Claire's pulse thundered in her ears. The cowboy didn't hesitate. His hand went to the gun at his hip. "Get behind me," he said. The men advanced slowly, guns drawn. Claire wanted to scream, run, do anything, but she was frozen, caught between fear and disbelief. The first man fired. The bullet slammed into the wall inches from the cowboy's head. He returned fire with deadly precision. The second man fell to the floor, groaning. The first man cursed and lunged forward. The cowboy tackled him, their bodies crashing into tables and bottles. Claire scrambled to the door and slammed it shut. Locking it, her hands shook uncontrollably. As the dust settled, the cowboy stood and faced her, breathing heavily. "They won't. Stop," he said grimly. "Not until they find what they're looking for." She swallowed hard. "What are they looking for?" He shook his head. "The truth. About you. About your family." Claire's mind reeled with questions and fear. The quiet life she had clung to was shattered. She thought back to the day her mother disappeared, the cold case that never warmed up. And now, pieces of the past were sliding into place, darker and more dangerous than she could have imagined. The cowboy's presence, the note, the gunman, they were all connected, and if she didn't act fast, she might be next. Hours passed in tense silence. The cowboy introduced himself as Luke, a man who had been wandering the West for years. His past was shrouded in mystery, but he hinted at a life marked by loss and betrayal, similar to hers. Claire found herself caught between distrust and desperate hope. Could this stranger be the key to her survival, or was he just another part of the danger closing in? Later, as the night deepened, Claire found herself staring at the locket Luke had given her. Inside was a faded photograph, her mother younger, smiling with a man Claire didn't recognize. "Who is he?" Claire whispered. Luke's eyes darkened. "A man who once promised to protect your family, but he betrayed them all." The weight of his words crushed her. The past was not dead. It was alive, breathing down her neck, ready to drag her into a world she never wanted to know. Outside, the wind shifted again. Claire made a choice. She wouldn't run. Not anymore. She would face the truth, no matter how brutal. As dawn broke over the silent town, Claire and Luke prepared to uncover the secrets that had haunted her for years, but the shadows behind them were growing darker, and the true danger had only just begun. The first light of morning filtered weakly through the grimy windows of the old saloon. Claire sat alone at a battered wooden table, the silver locket heavy in her palm. The photo inside weighed on her heart, her mother smiling, a stranger beside her. A man who had meant something, or maybe everything. Luke was gone. She didn't even realize when he slipped out, like a ghost fading into the dust and heat of the awakening town. He had left behind only one thing, a single worn envelope. Inside was a faded newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The headline read, "The Night Whisperer, a Legend or a Killer." Underneath, a black and white photo showed a man with sharp eyes and a crooked smile. The same man from the locket. Claire's hands trembled as she traced. "The face, who are you?" she whispered, voice cracking. The door creaked open again, breaking the fragile silence. It was Rose, the town's bartender, and the only person Claire felt she could trust. Rose had known Claire's mother, or at least what little she had shared. "Claire," Rose said softly, sliding a cup of coffee across the table, "you look like you've seen a ghost." Claire nodded, clutching the coffee like a lifeline. "I found something," she said, showing Rose the newspaper clipping. Rose's eyes darkened. "That man, that's Jeremiah Hale, the Night Whisperer. Folks say he's cursed. Half myth, half nightmare. Rumor is he disappeared after a string of killings 30 years ago." Claire's mind reeled. Her mother's photo beside a man linked to murder. Rose sighed. "Your mother was caught in something bigger than anyone understood. I warned you to stay out of it." Claire's fingers tightened around the locket. "I don't care what it is. I'm going to find out the truth." Rose looked at her with a mix of fear and admiration. "Just be careful, Claire. This town hides more than secrets." Luke returned late that evening, dusty and tired. But his eyes sharp. He didn't waste time. "We need to talk," he said. Claire nodded, heart pounding. Luke pulled out a crumpled map and spread it on the table. "This is where it started, the old Hale Ranch. Abandoned now, but it holds answers. I know what you're thinking. I'm a drifter, a stranger. But I was close to Jeremiah Hale, more than you realize." Claire swallowed hard. "Why did you leave me alone this morning?" "I had to make sure we weren't followed. These people aren't playing games," Luke said grimly. She looked at him, suspicion still simmering beneath the surface. "And you? What's your part in this?" Luke hesitated, then said, "I was like you once, searching for truth. But Jeremiah, he wasn't just a killer. He was protecting something deadly." The following days were a blur. Claire and Luke made plans to visit the old ranch. The town watched silently, whispers chasing them like shadows. Claire's mind was a storm of doubt and fear. Could she trust Luke? Was she ready to face the ghosts her mother left behind? But she couldn't turn back. Not now. On the way to the ranch, the dusty road stretched endlessly beneath the scorching sun. Luke drove, silent and focused, while Claire studied the landscape. Dry fields, dead trees, the occasional broken fence. Nothing like the peaceful life she'd imagined. As they neared the ranch, an eerie stillness settled. The buildings were skeletal ruins. Windows shattered, doors hanging off hinges, paint long gone. Luke stopped the truck. "This place," he said quietly, "is where it all began, where Jeremiah vanished and the darkness took root." Claire stepped out, heart racing. The wind whispered through the empty halls, carrying secrets she could almost hear. They explored cautiously, Luke leading the way. Inside the main house, dust covered every surface, and the air smelled of decay. On a cracked table lay an old journal. Claire opened it carefully. The handwriting was jagged but legible. "If anyone finds this, know the truth is buried deeper than bones. I am not the monster they believe me to be." Claire's eyes widened. "Jeremiah wrote this?" she asked Luke. He nodded. He was desperate to clear his name. He thought someone was framing him. As she read, Claire felt a strange connection to the man she barely knew, a man who might have been the key to her family's past. But then a sudden sound froze her blood. Footsteps outside the house. Slow, deliberate. Someone was coming. Luke grabbed her arm. "Hide!" They slipped behind a broken wall as the door creaked open. Two men entered, strangers, faces covered by bandanas. They spoke in low voices. "Find the journal." No mistakes this time. Claire's heart pounded. They were after the same thing, the truth. Luke's hand brushed hers. "We can't let them get it." They waited, breath held, as the men searched. The house. The tension was suffocating. Suddenly, a loud crash and a shelf falling gave them away. The men turned, guns raised. Luke pushed Claire behind him. "Run!" They dashed through the crumbling building, bullets tearing through the air. Claire stumbled, but Luke caught her. Outside, they ran for the truck, the men close behind. The engine roared to life. Luke floored the gas, tires kicking up dust as they sped away. Behind them, shouts and curses faded into the distance. Claire's breath came in gasps. "Who are they?" Luke shook his head. "We don't know yet, but they're dangerous." That night, safe for the moment in a rundown motel, Claire stared at the journal's last entry. "If my family is to survive, they must know the truth, no matter the cost." She closed the book and looked at Luke. What truth? Luke's eyes were haunted. The real reason Jeremiah disappeared, and why your mother was involved. Days turned into restless nights. Claire's world spun faster, pulled into a web of lies and danger. She found herself laughing less and fearing more. The drifter Cowboy was no longer just a stranger. He was her link to a past she had tried to forget. One evening, Claire's phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "Stop digging, or you'll be next." Her hands shook. Luke looked over her shoulder. "They're watching." Claire felt trapped, but also alive in a way she hadn't in years. She had been laughing at a drifter, dismissing him as nothing. Now she knew better. He wasn't just a man on the run. He was the guardian of a secret powerful enough to destroy them all. And Claire was caught right in the middle. The motel room felt smaller than before, cramped with tension that stretched between Claire and Luke like a taut wire. The flickering neon sign outside bled a dull red glow through the cracked curtains. Claire's hands trembled as she clutched the worn journal, the fragile pages now stained with desperation and fear. Luke sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone, the device that had just delivered the ominous threat. "They're closer than ever," he muttered, voice low. Claire swallowed hard, heart pounding in her ears. "Who are these people? What do they want from us?" Luke looked up, eyes sharp but haunted. "Power, control. They want to bury the past and everything. It means no matter who gets hurt." The room fell silent. Claire's mind raced, torn between disbelief and the aching need to understand. The man she'd mocked as a drifter had become her only ally against a shadowy enemy who threatened to erase her family's history, and maybe her very life. "Why me?" she whispered, tears prickling her eyes. "Why involve me at all?" Luke's gaze softened. "Because your mother was part of it. She held the key, more than just a photograph or a name. She knew the truth about Jeremiah Hale, and whoever's after that truth wants to make sure it dies with us." Claire's breath hitched. She felt the weight of generations pressing down on her, the ghosts of a past she'd never imagined stepping out of the shadows. Luke stood suddenly. "We can't stay here. They'll find us. I know someone who can help, but it's risky." Claire nodded without hesitation. "I'm ready." 2 days earlier, in a dimly lit office at the edge of town, a man waited. His name was Miles, an old friend of Luke's, or maybe something more complicated. His reputation preceded him, a man who walked the fine line between law and lawlessness, secrets and lies. When Luke stepped into the smoky room, Miles barely looked up. "You've brought the girl," he said, voice rough like gravel. Luke nodded. "She needs to know what we're really up against." Miles leaned back, eyes narrowing. "You think she can handle the truth?" Luke's jaw tightened. "She has to." Back in the motel the next morning, Claire and Luke followed Miles through a maze of alleys and forgotten streets until they reached a hidden bunker beneath an abandoned warehouse. Inside, the walls were lined with old photographs, maps, and files. A shrine to a history buried deep. Miles gestured to a dusty filing cabinet. "This is where the real story begins. Jeremiah Hale wasn't just a drifter or a killer. He was a whistleblower. He found out something so dangerous it made him public enemy number 1. Claire's hands trembled as she pulled out a folder labeled Operation Silent Night. Inside were documents, photographs, and letters. Evidence that spoke of government, conspiracies, illegal experiments, and a cover-up so vast it could shake the country. Claire's eyes widened. "My mother, she was part of this." Miles nodded grimly. She worked with Jeremiah to expose the truth, but someone betrayed them both. Luke stepped forward, his face shadowed. That's why Jeremiah disappeared. They wanted to silence him and anyone connected. Claire's mind spun. The betrayal cut deeper than any wound. Her mother, caught in a web of lies, fighting for justice and then disappearing like a ghost. "Why did you come back?" Claire asked Luke. He swallowed hard. "Because I owe them my life. Jeremiah saved me once. I promised to finish what he started." The bunker suddenly felt colder, the weight of secrets pressing down like stone. Claire realized that this was more than a family mystery. It was a battle between truth and power, life and death. Days passed, and Claire found herself growing closer to Luke, their shared danger forging a fragile bond, yet questions gnawed at her. Who had betrayed Jeremiah and her mother, and why? One night, as the three pored over files, Claire noticed a photograph tucked between papers, a man she didn't recognize, standing next to her mother. "Who's this?" she asked. Miles hesitated. "That's Gabriel Pierce, a powerful figure with ties to the government and darker dealings." Luke's eyes flickered. "Pierce is the reason Jeremiah had to disappear. He runs the shadow network that's been hunting us." Claire felt her world shift again. She was no longer chasing ghosts. She was in the middle of a dangerous game with stakes higher than she imagined. The next morning, as Claire stepped outside the bunker, a car idled quietly nearby. A man in a tailored suit watched her, a faint smile twisting his lips. Claire's blood ran cold. Luke appeared behind her, tense. "We have to move. Now!" They rushed back inside just as a bullet shattered the bunker's window. "Who was that?" Claire gasped. Miles grimaced. "An assassin sent to scare us off. They don't want the truth to come out." That night, Claire lay awake, fear and determination battling inside her. She thought about her mother, about Jeremiah Hale, about Luke, the drifter cowboy who had become her protector. She realized that her laughter at him was gone, replaced by something far more complicated: respect, fear, and a flicker of trust. The next day, as they prepared to leave town, Claire discovered something terrifying in the journal's final pages. A confession. "If I die, know this. The biggest betrayal came from someone closest to me." Claire's heart clenched. "Who betrayed Jeremiah?" she asked Luke, voice barely above a whisper. Luke looked away. "Someone we both trusted." The line between friend and foe blurred. Their departure was interrupted when the sheriff's office called, summoning Claire for questioning. The sheriff, a stern man with cold eyes, sat across from her. "We know you've been digging," he said. "You're putting yourself in danger." Claire met his gaze. "I want the truth." He leaned in. "Be careful, Claire. Some truths cost more than you think." Outside, as she walked away, Claire felt eyes on her. Someone was watching, waiting. That night, Claire received an anonymous package. Inside, a small blood-stained handkerchief. A warning. Claire's journey had only just begun. Claire barely slept that night. The blood-stained handkerchief lay on the small motel table, a grim reminder of how deep the danger ran. Her mind raced with questions, doubts, and growing fear. She could no longer pretend this was just about family secrets. This was about survival. Luke sat beside her, silent but watchful. His usual rough exterior seemed even more worn now, as if the weight of the past was finally catching up with him. "You don't have to do this alone," he said quietly. Claire met his eyes, shaking. Her head. "I have to. I need to know what really happened, who betrayed Jeremiah, and why." Luke sighed, running a hand through his tangled hair. "Then we're going back to where it started. The Hale Ranch. There's one place I haven't shown you yet. A place where the truth might finally come to light. The sun was just rising when they left town. The sky was streaked with pink and gold, but the promise of a new day felt hollow. The dusty road stretched ahead, but this time it led deeper. Into the wilderness, Luke drove with steady hands, eyes alert for any sign of pursuit. Claire sat beside him, clutching the journal, feeling the past and present collide in a way she hadn't expected. As they neared the ranch, the landscape shifted, wild grasses giving way to twisted trees, and the faint scent of smoke hung in the air. Luke pulled the truck to a stop near an overgrown path. "This is it," he said, voice low. Claire looked into the dense forest. Something in the shadows called to her, a mixture of fear and hope. They moved cautiously, stepping through the thick underbrush until they reached an old cabin, hidden from view by decades of neglect. Luke unlocked the door with a key he had carried all this time. Inside, the cabin was sparse but filled with evidence of a life lived in hiding. Maps pinned to the walls, notes scrawled in a shaky hand, and a safe tucked beneath a loose floorboard. Claire's heart pounded as Luke opened the safe. Inside, they found photographs, letters, and a small box wrapped in faded cloth. Claire unfolded a letter and began to read aloud. "To whoever finds this, the truth is more dangerous than you can imagine." Jeremiah was not only protecting secrets about the government, but also about his own family. There are those who will do anything to keep those secrets buried. The box contained a small, intricately carved wooden figure, a totem of some kind. Luke frowned. "This belonged to Jeremiah's mother," he said. "It's said to hold the key to the family's past, and maybe their salvation." Claire turned the totem over in her hands, feeling a strange energy pulse through her fingers. Suddenly, a noise outside shattered the quiet. The snap of a branch, hurried footsteps. They hid in the shadows as masked men surrounded the cabin. "Guns drawn," Luke whispered. "We've been followed." The tension exploded into chaos. Claire and Luke fought to escape, dodging bullets and crashing through the underbrush. During the escape, Claire tripped, falling hard. Pain shot through her ankle, but Luke was there, pulling her up. "Keep moving," he urged. The men were relentless, closing in. Finally, they reached a clearing where an old pickup truck waited. Luke jumped in, and Claire limped beside him. As the engine roared to life, Claire looked back to see one of the men aiming a gun. A shot rang out, missing by inches. Luke drove like a man possessed, heart pounding as he navigated twisting roads. "Who are these men?" Claire gasped. Luke shook his head. "They're the enforcers, hired to silence anyone who gets too close." Back at the motel, Claire cleaned her wound as Luke patched it up with care. "Why do you keep risking everything?" she asked, voice raw. Luke looked away. "Because if I don't, everything Jeremiah fought for, everything your mother died for, will be lost." Days later, Claire received a mysterious call. The voice was distorted but urgent. "Meet me at the old church at midnight, alone." Claire's heart raced. She looked at Luke, who nodded grimly. "We'll go together," he said. At the church, moonlight spilled through broken stained glass, casting eerie patterns. A figure emerged from the shadows. A woman, older, with eyes full of secrets. "I'm Helen," she said softly, "your mother's closest friend." Helen revealed pieces of the past that stunned Claire. Betrayals, hidden alliances, and a secret pact made to protect the family. "She trusted me to keep the truth safe," Helen said. "But not everyone can be trusted." Suddenly, the church. Doors slammed shut. Luke and Claire spun around. The enforcers had found them. A fierce battle broke out. Claire fought with a ferocity she didn't know she had. When it was over, Helen handed Claire an old blood-stained photograph. "Look closely," Helen whispered. "This is the real betrayal." Claire stared at the photo, shock freezing her breath. In the picture stood her mother, and beside her, the sheriff, the man who had warned her, who had questioned her, the very man she thought might help. "Why?" Claire whispered, voice breaking. Helen's eyes were filled with tears. "Because some betrayals come from those closest to you." As dawn broke, Claire realized the fight was far from over. But now, the real enemy had a face. Claire sat alone. In the dim light of the motel room, the blood-stained photograph burning a hole in her palm. The face beside her mother's wasn't just familiar, it was a cruel betrayal. Sheriff Grady, the man she had once thought of as a protector of their town, was now the face of treachery. The truth crashed over her like a tidal wave. The man who had warned her, questioned her, and watched her with cold eyes was the mastermind behind the shadows chasing them. But why? Why would he betray her mother and Jeremiah Hale, who fought for justice? Luke's heavy footsteps echoed as he returned from a late scouting run. He paused at the door, his gaze dark and unreadable. "You found it," he said quietly. Claire nodded. "The sheriff. He's the snake in the grass." Luke's face hardened. "I always suspected. The way he moved, the things he said. He's got too much to lose if the truth comes out." The weight of betrayal settled in the room like a suffocating fog. Claire ran her fingers over the photo again, searching for answers. "Why do you think he betrayed them?" she asked. Luke shook. His head. Power, money, control. The sheriff wasn't just protecting the town, he was protecting his own interests. Jeremiah and your mother threatened to expose a secret deal, a deal that could destroy many powerful people. Claire's mind reeled. A secret deal. Corruption so deep it seeped into every corner of the town. Days passed in a tense blur of planning and hiding. Claire and Luke knew they couldn't face Sheriff Grady alone. They needed allies, evidence, something that could bring the corrupt to light. Helen had disappeared after the church ambush, leaving behind only a cryptic note. "Trust no one but those who carry the truth." One evening, as Claire studied the journal, a knock rattled the door. Luke moved to answer, hand on the pistol strapped to his hip. At the threshold stood a man, older, rugged, with wary eyes. "Name's Mason," he said. "I knew your mother. I want to help." Mason's story was staggering. He had been a detective once, driven out for digging too deep into the same case Jeremiah and Claire's mother had been chasing. Corruption had pushed him underground, but he never stopped fighting. "Sheriff Grady's fingers reach far," Mason warned. "He's got a network. You can't trust anyone in that town." Claire exchanged a glance with Luke. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and outmaneuvered. The trio pored over every scrap of evidence they could find. The journal, Helen's notes, Mason's files. Piece by piece, a chilling picture emerged. The secret deal wasn't just about money. It involved illegal land seizures, experimental drugs, and a cover-up of deaths that had been disguised as accidents. Jeremiah had stumbled on this and tried to blow the whistle. His disappearance wasn't a mystery. It was murder in disguise. Claire's grief boiled into rage. Her mother's death, Jeremiah's silence, all part of a deadly game played by people with no conscience. One night, Mason pulled Claire aside. "There's one last place we can look. An old government facility outside. Good town. It's where they ran the experiments. If we find proof there, we might finally bring this down." Luke frowned. "That place is crawling with security and Grady's men." Claire's voice was steady. "We have to try." Under the cover of darkness, they set out, hearts pounding with equal parts fear and determination. The facility loomed like a ghost, metal walls scarred with rust, barbed wire fencing twisted against the night sky. Inside, the air was stale, thick with secrets. They navigated corridors lined with empty rooms, peeling paint and faded warnings. In the control room, Mason found files, test results, names, dates, and horrifying experiments on unsuspecting townspeople. Claire's hands shook as she read the names, some familiar, some not. Her breath caught when she saw a name she recognized, Sarah Mitchell, the woman who had disappeared years ago, whose case had been quietly closed. Suddenly, footsteps echoed behind them. They spun around to face armed guards. A firefight erupted, bullets flying in the dark. Luke took down 2 men, Mason disarmed another, and Claire found herself fighting for her life, fueled by rage and the desperate need for justice. They barely escaped, clutching the files as evidence. Back at the motel, Claire collapsed, tears streaming down her face. "We can't keep running," she said brokenly, "but if we stay, we die." Luke took her hand. "We're closer than ever. This ends soon." The next day, Claire decided to confront Sheriff Grady. She walked into the sheriff's office with the files hidden beneath her coat. Grady looked up, surprised to see her. "Looking for answers, Claire?" he sneered. She held up the files. "I know everything, the experiments, the cover-up. You're finished." Grady's smile vanished. His eyes turned cold. "You have no idea what you're dealing with." Suddenly, the office door burst open. Mason and Luke stood ready, guns drawn. "You're under arrest," Mason declared. Grady lunged for his pistol, but Luke was faster. The sheriff was handcuffed, the weight of his crimes finally catching up. Outside, townspeople gathered, shocked and angry as the truth spilled out. Claire stood tall, the pain of betrayal turning into strength. That night, as she looked at the stars, she whispered, "For you, Mom, for Jeremiah, for all of us." But in the shadows, a new threat watched. The fight was far from over. The small town had never seen anything like the upheaval that followed Sheriff Grady's arrest. As news spread, whispers turned into conversations, and conversations into demands for justice. Claire stood at the center of it all, a reluctant hero who had uncovered a conspiracy that shook the foundations of the place she called home. But peace was still far away. Claire sat on the porch of the motel, the cool morning, breeze brushing her face. Luke was nearby, fixing the old truck. Mason was gone for now, chasing leads. Her mind replayed everything, the secrets, betrayals, the lives lost. Her mother's smile flashed before her eyes, a bittersweet reminder of the cost of truth. The files they recovered had exposed the illegal experiments, the land grabs, and the cover-up of countless tragedies. With the sheriff behind bars and several accomplices arrested, the town began to heal. Slowly, painfully. Yet Claire felt a gnawing emptiness. Justice was served, but the scars ran deep. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, a knock came at Claire's door. She opened it to find Helen, the woman who had vanished months ago. Helen's eyes were heavy with sorrow. "There's one last thing you need to know," she said. Claire nodded, heart pounding. Helen revealed a hidden ledger, names and transactions that tied some of the town's most respected figures to the corruption. They thought hiding behind power would protect them. Helen said, "But truth always finds a way." Claire knew the fight wasn't over. Not yet. Over the next weeks, she worked with Helen and Mason, exposing the remaining conspirators one by one. The town's dark underbelly was finally laid bare. Luke remained her steadfast protector and friend, the drifter cowboy who had become her anchor. One night, sitting by the campfire outside town, Claire turned to him. "Why did you stay?" she asked softly. Luke smiled, the firelight dancing in his eyes. "Because some battles are worth fighting, and some people are worth trusting." As the months passed, the town slowly reclaimed its innocence. New leaders emerged, promising transparency and fairness. Claire started working at the local community center, helping those affected by the past. But even with progress, Claire struggled with her own pain, the loss of her mother, the betrayal she endured, and the long journey to healing. One afternoon, as she walked through the woods where Jeremiah had disappeared, she found an old oak tree, its bark carved with initials JH plus MC. Quiet peace settled over her. It was a reminder that even in darkness, love endured. Claire's story spread beyond the town, inspiring others to seek truth and justice. She was no longer just the woman who had laughed at a drifter cowboy. She was a symbol of courage, resilience, and hope. On a quiet morning, Luke handed her a letter. It was from Jeremiah's brother, alive and well, who had been in hiding. He wrote of regret, forgiveness, and a desire to reconnect. Claire felt the weight lift from her shoulders. She realized that sometimes losing everything was the only way to find who you really are. As she watched the sunrise, she whispered, "This is just the beginning. The end